The Secret to Thinking Clearly Under Pressure. Author Imperium Audiobooks. Introduction. The calm within the chaos. There's a moment, a split second when everything seems to fall apart. The room grows louder, your heartbeat races, your chest tightens. The clock ticks faster than your thoughts can catch up. Pressure isn't just around you, it's inside you. And in that moment, your mind has two choices, panic or clarity. But what if you could choose clarity every time? That's the secret we're about to explore. How to think clearly under pressure, not by escaping the storm, but by mastering your mind inside it. You've been taught to chase calm by changing your surroundings. But the truth is, calm doesn't live in quiet rooms. It lives in trained minds. Think of a firefighter walking into a blaze, a surgeon holding a trembling heartbeat, a mother calming a crying child, while her own world feels unsteady. Pressure isn't something we eliminate. It's something we learn to navigate. And those who think clearly when the world shakes, they become unshakable. Welcome to The Secret to Thinking Clearly Under Pressure. This is not a book about stress management. This is about mental mastery. It's about learning the art of stillness when everything is spinning, about reprogramming your brain to respond rather than react. You'll learn how to slow down your thoughts, even when time feels like it's running out. You'll learn how your body's chemistry can trick your brain into fear, and how to reverse it in seconds. You'll discover how great thinkers, leaders, and everyday people keep clarity in chaos, not because they're special, but because they've learned the language of pressure. Pressure is not your enemy. It's a test, one designed to reveal what's already inside you. And clarity, my friend, is not a gift, it's a skill you can build. Through this audiobook, each chapter will serve as both a mirror and a manual, showing you what happens in your mind when stress hits, and giving you practical, spiritual, and emotional tools to regain control. We'll walk through 10 key principles, 10 pillars that will help you respond with power instead of panic. And by the time you're done, pressure won't feel like the enemy anymore. It will feel like your training ground. You'll learn how to reset your body's stress response in under 60 seconds, how to use silence as a strategy for focus, how to think clearly when fear hijacks your logic, how to transform anxiety into alertness and clarity, and how to spiritually anchor your mind so deeply that storms only sharpen your focus. You've been through enough moments of overwhelm to know this truth. You can't control every storm, but you can control how you sail through it. That's clarity, that's confidence, that's your calm. As you listen, take this journey slowly. Pause when something hits your heart. Reflect when something stirs your thoughts. Don't rush. Clarity isn't born in haste. It's born in awareness. So take a deep breath. Let the tension leave your shoulders. You're about to discover a version of yourself you've never fully met. The calm thinker, the composed warrior, the clear mind under pressure. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The moment everything feels like too much. There comes a point in every person's life when the pressure becomes almost unbearable. The weight of decisions, expectations, and responsibilities presses on your chest like an invisible stone. You try to take a breath, but the air feels thinner. You tell yourself, "I'm fine," yet deep down you can hear the trembling voice of doubt whispering, "What if I can't handle this?" If you've ever felt that way, you're not broken. You're human. Pressure is not proof that you're weak. It's proof that you're alive and engaged with something that matters. But what separates those who crumble under pressure from those who rise within it? It's not talent. It's not intelligence. It's clarity. Clarity is what allows a leader to make the right call when everyone else is panicking. It's what keeps a surgeon's hand steady when every heartbeat counts. It's what allows a mother tired and overwhelmed to still speak calm into chaos. Clarity is strength disguised as stillness. Understanding the nature of pressure. Pressure doesn't always come from big, dramatic moments. Sometimes it's quiet, a constant background noise in your life. It's the to-do list that never ends, the goals you keep missing, the people you're trying to please, the silent fear that you might fail again. And yet in those moments, your mind is doing something fascinating. It's moving faster than you can process. When stress hits your brain's amygdala, the emotional center goes into overdrive. It sends signals that flood your body with adrenaline and cortisol. Your heart races, your palms sweat, and your breathing shortens. You're not thinking, you're surviving. But here's the problem. You can't make clear decisions in survival mode. Your logic shuts down so your instincts can take over. And if you don't train your mind to slow down, you'll keep repeating the same panic pattern, freezing, overthinking, or reacting emotionally instead of intentionally. So how do you stop this? How do you train your mind to stay still when everything feels like it's collapsing? It begins with awareness. Awareness, the first step toward clarity. You cannot manage what you don't notice. And most people never notice their pressure building until it explodes. Awareness means catching the small signals before the storm hits. Your body always tells you the truth before your mind does. The tension in your shoulders, the short breath, the scattered focus. These are not inconveniences, they are indicators. When you start feeling that internal pressure, don't ignore it. Acknowledge it. Pause and say, something inside me is reacting. That moment of naming it pulls you back into control. It's the mental equivalent of stepping out of a rushing river to stand on the bank for a moment. The water still flows, but you're no longer drowning in it. The power of pause in high-pressure moments. The pause is your weapon. It's the most underrated mental skill in the world. When you pause, even for 5 seconds, you interrupt panic's momentum. You create a gap between what's happening to you and how you choose to respond. Every clear thinker uses this principle whether they know it or not. Athletes call it resetting. Pilots call it stabilizing. Spiritually, it's called being still. You can practice this by building pause rituals throughout your day. Before responding to an emotional message, take one deep breath. Before making a decision under stress, ask, what matters most right now? Before assuming the worst, whisper, let's see this clearly. That's how you start retraining your nervous system to follow your command instead of hijacking your peace. The mindset shift. From panic to presence. Most people think calmness is the absence of pressure. It's not. Calmness is the presence of clarity in the middle of pressure. When you're under stress, your brain either looks backward regret or forward fear. The only way to think clearly is to bring it back to now. Try this the next time you feel overwhelmed. Say quietly to yourself, I am here, I am breathing, I can choose. That sentence is simple but powerful. It reactivates your logical brain. You shift from reaction to reflection, from chaos to command. Pressure will always whisper lies that you're not enough, that time's running out, that you're failing. But presence whispers truth, that you are capable, that there is time, that clarity lives inside you waiting to be accessed. Pressure is a teacher. Every stressful moment you face is an invitation. Pressure teaches you what still needs strengthening. It exposes the cracks not to shame you but to show you where your foundation can be rebuilt. The most composed people aren't those who never feel fear. They're the ones who've learned how to face it and still think clearly through it. They've turned pressure into a classroom. Each challenge becomes a test of mastery. So instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Start asking, what is this teaching me? That question transforms pressure from an enemy into an ally. It shifts your energy from resistance to growth. Because sometimes the clearest thinking comes not from calm waters, but from learning how to steer in the storm. Final thoughts for this chapter. Clarity doesn't appear magically. It's built through repetition. Through every moment you choose awareness over reaction, breath over panic, stillness over chaos. Pressure doesn't define you. It refines you. It's not a punishment. It's preparation. The next time life tightens its grip, don't fight to escape it. Instead, breathe, pause and listen. Somewhere in the noise there's a quiet voice saying you are capable, you are calm, you can think clearly. Even now, that's where your power lives, not in avoiding pressure, but in mastering your mind inside it. Chapter 2. The Science of Calm. Understanding how the brain reacts to stress. You can't win a battle you don't understand, and most people are fighting stress without realizing who or what the real opponent is. They think pressure is just about external circumstances, the deadlines, the arguments, the unexpected problems. But pressure doesn't come from outside. It's built inside the brain. If you've ever felt your heart race before a big decision, your stomach tighten before a difficult conversation, or your thoughts spiral before sleep, what you were feeling was not weakness. It was biology. The ancient alarm system. Your brain has a built-in alarm called the amygdala. It's small, almond-shaped, and ancient, older than logic, older than reasoning. Its job is simple: keep you alive. When it senses threat, it fires off a cascade of chemicals that prepare your body for one of three responses: fight, flight, or freeze. Back in primitive times, that alarm was life-saving. If a lion jumped out of the bushes, your amygdala would blast your body with adrenaline and cortisol. Your heart would pound, your blood would rush to your limbs, and you'd be ready to run or fight. Perfect for survival, terrible for a business meeting or a modern deadline. The problem: your amygdala doesn't know the difference between a real lion and an emotional one. To your brain, an angry email or a financial worry feels just as dangerous. It can't tell that you're safe. It only senses tension. That's why your body reacts with the same intensity, even when you know better. You might say, "I'm overreacting," but your brain says, "I'm protecting you." It's not broken, it's just untrained for modern life. How the mind hijacks itself. When your amygdala activates, it takes over your brain's command center. It shuts down access to your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for logic, planning and decision-making. That's why in high-pressure moments, you forget what you were about to say, make emotional decisions, or replay fears instead of solutions. It's called an amygdala hijack. And once it happens, clarity goes out the window. Imagine your mind as a powerful airplane. The prefrontal cortex is the pilot. It flies with reason and direction. The amygdala is the emergency system. It doesn't fly the plane, but when it senses danger, it grabs the controls, and when it does, all your careful plans are overridden by instinct. So the real challenge isn't removing pressure, it's learning how to take back the controls. How do you get the pilot back in charge when panic has hijacked your flight? The power of the pause, revisited. Remember in Chapter 1 when we talked about pausing? Now you understand why it's so powerful. When you pause under stress, when you take one conscious, deliberate breath, you interrupt the hijack. That single moment of awareness sends a signal from your prefrontal cortex back to the amygdala, essentially saying, "Stand down, we're safe." Your body chemistry begins to shift. Your pulse slows, oxygen levels rise, and your brain reopens access to logic. It's not magic, it's neuroscience. The pause doesn't erase pressure. It retrains your brain to stop treating every situation like a survival threat. And over time, your nervous system starts to trust you again. You teach it that not every alarm deserves full panic mode. Breathing, your built-in reset button. Your breath is the only system that bridges your body and mind. It's both automatic and controllable. That means it's your most powerful tool for instant calm. When you breathe shallow and fast, your body thinks you're in danger. When you breathe deep and slow, your body assumes safety. Try this simple technique the next time you feel pressure rising. Inhale slowly for 4 seconds. Feel your lungs expand. Hold for 4 seconds. Let your body catch the rhythm. Exhale gently for 6 seconds. Imagine releasing the tension from your chest. Pause for 2 seconds before the next breath. Repeat it 3 times. That short breathing cycle tells your brain, we're safe. We can think again. In that space you regain clarity. You might not change the situation instantly, but you change the chemistry that shapes your response, and that's everything. Training your brain to stay calm. Here's the truth. Calm isn't something you stumble into, it's something you practice. Every time you choose to breathe instead of react, you're strengthening neural pathways that support clear thinking. Your brain rewires through repetition. If you panic every time stress hits, your mind learns that panic is the default. If you practice awareness, pause and breath, even imperfectly, your mind learns that calm is possible. Over time that becomes your new reflex. Pressure hits, and instead of collapsing, you stabilize. That's what mental mastery looks like. Why faith and focus matter. Science explains the mechanism, but faith fuels the mindset. When you believe that you're guided, protected, and capable, your stress response changes. Faith literally rewires fear. People who cultivate spiritual grounding through prayer, meditation or reflection show lower cortisol levels, improved focus, and stronger resilience under pressure. Why? Because belief anchors the brain. When your mind says, I can't handle this, but your spirit says, I am not alone in this, your body listens, your breathing slows, your clarity returns, and your faith becomes your focus. So if science gives you the how, faith gives you the why. Together they form a complete system of calm. Reclaiming the pilot seat in life. Pressure will keep coming. The deadlines, the people, the noise. You can't stop the waves, but you can train your mind to surf. Every moment you pause, breathe and focus, you reclaim the pilot seat. You tell your amygdala, thank you for trying to protect me, but I've got this. That's the moment clarity returns. That's the moment you begin to think, not react. And that right there is the secret to handling anything life throws your way. Final reflection. The science of calm isn't about escaping reality. It's about understanding it so deeply that it can no longer control you. Your mind is the battlefield, your awareness is the weapon, and your breath is the bridge back to peace. When you train your brain to stay still under stress, you unlock a version of yourself that pressure can't touch, because thinking clearly under pressure isn't about being unbothered, it's about being unbreakable. Chapter 3. The enemy within: overthinking, fear, and the illusion of control. The loudest battle is never outside of you. It's inside your mind. Pressure doesn't just come from deadlines, demands, or people. It comes from thoughts that won't stop echoing. Thoughts that replay old mistakes. Thoughts that predict disasters that haven't even happened. Thoughts that whisper, you have to fix everything right now. This is where clarity often dies, not in the chaos of the world, but in the noise of your own head. The prison of overthinking. Overthinking is the mind's attempt to find safety through control. You replay scenarios, conversations, and possibilities, hoping that one more thought will make you feel ready. But it never does. The more you think, the more anxious you become. Because overthinking isn't problem-solving, it's emotional spinning. You burn mental energy searching for answers that only peace can reveal. You can't think your way into calm. You can only still your way into clarity. Ask yourself, how many of your worries are things you can act on right now? How many are ghosts of what if? If it's not something you can do in this moment, it doesn't belong in this moment. That's how you begin to reclaim your focus, by giving your attention only to what's within reach. Overthinking drains your energy before the real challenge even arrives. It's like running a marathon in your mind before you've even left the house. You arrive at life already exhausted. Fear, the disguised voice of protection. Fear isn't your enemy. It's a messenger. It's your brain saying, something here matters. But the problem begins when fear stops being a signal and becomes a dictator. Fear has one job: to keep you safe. But it doesn't know how to tell the difference between real danger and emotional discomfort. That's why your heart races before a presentation, or why your stomach tightens before you speak your truth. Your brain doesn't know that your life isn't in danger, it just knows you care. So it reacts the same way it would if a lion was standing in front of you. The solution is not to erase fear but to reframe it. When fear speaks, don't silence it. Listen, ask it what it's trying to protect. Then remind it who's in charge. You can say, "Thank you for trying to keep me safe. But this isn't danger, it's growth." That one mental shift transforms fear from a wall into a doorway. Instead of blocking your clarity, it begins to guide it. The illusion of control. Here's a truth that few admit. Much of our stress doesn't come from what's happening, but from what we're trying to control. We fight reality every day: people's opinions, timing, outcomes, the way life unfolds, and every time reality refuses to bend, our anxiety spikes. Control feels like power, but in truth, it's often just fear wearing a mask. It says, "If I can manage everything, nothing will hurt me." But control doesn't eliminate pain, it multiplies it. Because the more you try to manage the uncontrollable, the more helpless you feel when it doesn't obey. Freedom begins when you stop trying to control everything and start mastering your response to anything. You cannot control the waves, but you can control how you balance on the board. You cannot control people, but you can control your peace around them. You cannot control outcomes, but you can control your input, your effort, your focus. That's where true clarity begins, at the border between what you can change and what you must release. The mind's tug of war. Imagine your mind as two voices in constant debate. One voice says, "Do something, fix it, control it." The other whispers, "Wait, breathe, trust." The first voice is loud, urgent, emotional. The second is quiet, logical, and calm. And whichever one you listen to becomes your reality. Thinking clearly under pressure is about training yourself to listen to the quiet voice, even when the loud one is screaming. That's why stillness feels so uncomfortable at first. When you pause, your fears get louder. When you stop controlling, your anxiety rises. But that discomfort is not a sign you're failing. It's a sign you're detoxing from chaos. You've been addicted to control for so long that peace feels foreign. Give it time. Stillness always feels scary before it feels safe. Clarity, through surrender. Surrender is not giving up. It's letting go of the illusion that you ever had control. It's saying, "I've done what I can. The rest is not mine to carry." When you surrender what's beyond your control, your mind instantly becomes lighter. Your mental bandwidth returns, and in that open space, clarity rises. You begin to see the truth. Pressure doesn't need to shrink your vision, it needs to sharpen it. When you stop trying to force outcomes, your mind finally has energy to focus on what really matters. What is within your control? What deserves your attention right now? What can you do with calm instead of panic? That's the mindset of mental mastery. Practical steps to break the overthinking loop. If your mind is constantly spinning, here's a simple but powerful process. Write it down. Take every thought, every fear, every what if, and get it out of your head. Once it's on paper, it loses its power. Separate what you can do from what you can't. Draw two columns, within my control and beyond my control. Focus your action on the first, and your peace on the second. Breathe before you decide. When you feel overwhelmed, don't act impulsively. Give yourself the grace of one slow breath. Pray or reflect. Faith is the ultimate clarity tool. It reminds you that you're not in this alone. These steps may sound simple, but done consistently, they rewire your emotional reflexes. You begin to think slower, deeper, wiser. You begin to reclaim your peace. Final thoughts: overthinking, fear, and control. These are not random enemies. They're all born from one root cause: the belief that you are unsafe. But you are safe. You are guided. And when you return to that truth, your thoughts stop chasing protection and start serving purpose. The mind that chases control loses peace. The mind that chooses surrender gains clarity. So the next time your thoughts start racing, remember this: you don't need to control the outcome. You just need to calm the thinker. Because once your mind is still, the path always reveals itself. Chapter 4. The Art of Staying Composed. When everything feels urgent. Urgency is the illusion that everything must happen now. It's the voice in your head that screams, "Do something, anything." It's the pull that makes your hands move faster while your mind moves slower. And in those moments, clarity becomes the first casualty. But here's the truth: very few things in life are truly urgent. Most of what feels urgent is simply emotion dressed up as emergency. And until you learn to tell the difference, you'll live your life reacting instead of responding. The pressure of now, everywhere you look. The world demands speed. Notifications, deadlines, messages, expectations, they all scream for your immediate attention. The faster you move, the more productive you're told you are. But here's the irony: speed without direction doesn't create progress. It creates exhaustion. When you rush, you don't think, you react. And reaction is the enemy of clarity. Reaction is what turns small problems into big ones, simple choices into confusion, and calm leaders into chaotic followers. Staying composed isn't about ignoring urgency. It's about refusing to be owned by it. It's learning how to move fast on the outside while staying still on the inside. Why urgency hijacks the mind. Your brain was never designed for constant alarm. Each time you perceive something as urgent, your stress response activates. Adrenaline spikes, focus narrows, and your body goes into survival mode. You're alert, but not aware. That's why people under pressure often make impulsive decisions. They've confused the body's panic for the mind's purpose. Urgency is useful only when it's real. When it's not, it's poison. The more your brain lives in artificial urgency, the more it forgets how to relax. That's why calm people seem so rare. They're the ones who've retrained their nervous systems not to panic at every sound of the clock. The power of still speed. Still speed is the art of moving efficiently without losing inner stillness. It's the state where your body works fast but your mind stays slow. You've seen it before. An athlete in motion yet calm. A speaker commanding a room while grounded. A leader under fire but unshaken. Still speed is not natural. It's trained. And it begins with one principle: never let emotion set your pace. The moment you feel that rising tension, that urge to rush or react, pause. You're not losing time. You're regaining direction. A few seconds of pause can prevent hours of regret. Every decision made in panic carries a hidden cost, but a decision made from composure multiplies its impact. Slowing down time. You've probably experienced moments when time seemed to slow, in crisis, in focus, or during moments of deep presence. That's not imagination. It's neurological. When you're fully focused, your brain's prefrontal cortex takes over. It processes information more efficiently, filters distractions, and creates the illusion that time is expanding. You don't actually have more time. You just see it more clearly. This is what high performers call flow state. And the door to that state isn't speed, it's stillness. You can't enter flow when you're anxious. You enter it when you're anchored. That's why the most effective people don't rush through pressure. They slow it down. They breathe deeper. They speak slower. They think clearer. Because when time speeds up, slowing down is your superpower. The emotional storm test. Here's a simple way to test your emotional composure. The next time someone says or does something that provokes you, don't respond for 10 seconds. 10 seconds might sound small, but in those 10 seconds you reclaim your clarity. You allow emotion to settle and reason to return. If you can hold peace for 10 seconds, you can hold it longer. And each pause rewires your brain to stay calm in chaos. Try it with everything. Before you reply, before you decide, before you react. Because the goal isn't to move slower, it's to move smarter. Breaking the urgency cycle to escape the urgency trap. You need to build new habits that anchor your focus. Create margin. Don't fill every moment. Leave white space in your schedule. Clarity doesn't come from doing more. It comes from thinking better. Prioritize peace over pace. If speed is costing you peace, it's too expensive. Learn to say no to noise. Practice daily stillness. Take 5 minutes each morning to breathe, pray, or reflect before touching your phone. You're not wasting time, you're training calm. Redefine urgent. Before reacting, ask yourself, will this still matter tomorrow? Most of what feels urgent today fades by sunrise. When you live by urgency, you lose control. When you live by clarity, you gain command. Composure is strength. Composure doesn't mean you feel no pressure. It means you no longer collapse beneath it. It's the quiet confidence that says, I can handle this, one moment at a time. When you're composed, people trust you. They follow your calm, not your chaos. Because clarity is contagious. The way you think under pressure influences everyone around you. And that's what separates those who lead from those who react. Leaders control their presence, not just their performance. The calm response formula. Here's a mental equation that will change how you handle urgency forever. Pause plus perspective equals sign power. Pause slows your emotion. Perspective restores your vision. Power is the result, the ability to act with confidence instead of confusion. This is how you reclaim control of your mind under pressure, not by avoiding urgency, but by mastering how you meet it. Final thoughts. The world will always demand your instant reaction, but you don't owe it that. You owe yourself your peace. You owe your mind the space to see clearly. You owe your purpose the clarity it deserves. The moment you stop rushing, you start leading. Because composure isn't found in perfect conditions. It's forged in the fire of urgency. When everything feels like it must happen now, remember, it doesn't. Only clarity matters now. Everything else can wait. Chapter 5. How to stay emotionally grounded when pressure becomes personal. Pressure is one thing when it's about deadlines, performance, or expectations. But when it touches your heart, when it involves people you love, decisions that define your worth, or moments that test your faith, it becomes heavier. It's no longer about solving a problem. It's about surviving the feeling. This kind of pressure isn't loud. It whispers. It sits in your chest. It steals your sleep. It's the kind that makes you question, am I strong enough for this? And if you're not careful, personal pressure can blur your identity. You start to believe that your stress defines you, that your emotions are evidence of weakness, that if you were really together, you wouldn't feel this much. But the truth is simpler and kinder. Feeling deeply doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. The emotional earthquake, emotional pressure works like an earthquake. It shakes everything that isn't anchored. Your confidence, your self-belief, your relationships, they all tremble under it. When it hits, most people try to think their way out of it. They say, I just need to calm down. But emotion doesn't obey logic. You can't outthink what you haven't outfelt. You must acknowledge before you align. You can't manage emotional storms by pretending they don't exist. Real strength isn't suppressing emotion. It's stabilizing through it. That means giving yourself permission to feel without surrendering to the feeling. It means saying, yes, I'm overwhelmed right now, without letting that overwhelm make your decisions for you. The anchor within. So how do you stay grounded when emotion takes over? You anchor yourself. Think of a ship in a storm. The waves are real, the wind is wild, but what keeps that ship from drifting isn't the size of the storm, it's the depth of its anchor. In life, your anchor is your center, your values, your faith, your vision. Pressure tests how deep that anchor truly is. You can't always control what happens around you, but you can always decide what happens within you. That decision, to stay centered, is your greatest act of emotional power. When you anchor yourself, you stop chasing stability from people, outcomes, or approval. You create it from within. And once your peace comes from within, no external storm can take it from you. Grounding techniques for real-world pressure. Here are a few grounding practices that work, not in theory, but in real emotional moments. Name what you feel. Pressure thrives in silence. The moment you name your feeling, fear, anger, grief, frustration, you separate yourself from it. You're saying, "This is something I feel, not something I am." Breathe through, don't break through. Deep breathing isn't cliché, it's science. When you breathe slowly, you send a signal to your nervous system. It's safe to calm down. You don't have to fight the feeling. You just need to outlast its peak. Speak truth over emotion. Emotion screams in absolutes. It will always be like this. You'll never make it. Counter it with truth. This is temporary. I've survived worse. I'm learning strength through this. Return to your why. When pressure becomes personal, it tries to disconnect you from purpose. Go back to why you started, who you're becoming, and what truly matters. The heart that remembers why can endure almost anyhow. The power of emotional boundaries. One of the most underestimated skills in life is emotional boundary setting. When you're under pressure, especially from people, it's easy to absorb emotions that don't belong to you. You take on guilt that isn't yours. You carry worry that isn't your responsibility. You start to drown in everyone's waves while trying to keep them from sinking. But here's a gentle truth. You can care deeply without carrying everything. Compassion is not the same as control. You can be present for others without losing your peace. When you draw emotional boundaries, you're not pushing people away. You're protecting the clarity that allows you to love them well. You can't pour from a chaotic mind, and you can't think clearly if you're busy rescuing everyone else from the storms they were meant to learn from. Faith in the middle. There's a kind of peace that logic can't explain. It's the peace that comes from faith. When pressure becomes personal, faith is often the only ground left standing. Faith doesn't always remove pressure, but it gives it purpose. It whispers, "You're not alone. There's meaning here, even if you can't see it yet." It turns pain into patience, fear into focus, and exhaustion into endurance. The secret to thinking clearly under emotional pressure isn't found in a new strategy, it's found in surrender. Surrender doesn't mean giving up, it means giving over. It means trusting that even this pressure is shaping you for something greater. The reframe. Pressure as a mirror. Pressure doesn't only reveal your weakness, it reveals your wiring. It shows what matters most to you, what triggers your fear, what memories still hold your energy. When pressure becomes personal, it's rarely random, it's revealing. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What is this showing me about myself?" Maybe it's showing that you care deeply. Maybe it's showing an old wound that's ready to heal. Maybe it's showing that your capacity has outgrown your current environment. If you can see pressure as a mirror, instead of a monster, you stop fighting it and start learning from it. And every lesson you learn adds weight to your anchor. Returning to center at the end of the day. Emotional grounding isn't about escaping emotion, it's about staying centered through it. You don't have to silence your storm to stand in it. You just need to remember that the storm doesn't define you. Every emotion has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Let it move through you without letting it move you off course. Let yourself feel, then let yourself focus. Because when your mind, body, and spirit align in peace, even just for a moment, pressure loses its power. Final reflection. Think about this. The same ground that shakes in an earthquake can also grow new life after it settles. Pressure may shake you, but it also breaks the surface for new strength to rise. You are not fragile. You are evolving. And every emotional wave you endure deepens your capacity for clarity. When pressure becomes personal, return to your anchor. Breathe. Speak truth. Reclaim peace. You can't always control the storm, but you can always control your center. Because clear thinking isn't born in calm seas, it's forged in emotional waves, and the more grounded you become, the less anything can move you. Chapter 6. Mastering the power of calm communication under pressure. There are moments when silence feels impossible. The pressure rises, the heart beats faster. The words climb up your throat, ready to escape before they're thought through. And yet in those moments, when the heat is highest and the stakes are real, what separates peace from chaos is not what you say, but how you say it. Communication under pressure is an art. It's not about speaking louder, it's about speaking clearer. It's not about winning the argument, it's about protecting connection. Because when emotions rise, clarity sinks, unless you learn how to hold it above the noise. The first rule: pause before you pour. When tension spikes, most people rush to fill the silence. They want to explain, defend, correct, or control. But in that rush, words lose precision. They become emotional, not intentional. Here's the paradox. Silence feels like weakness in conflict, but it's actually your greatest weapon. A pause doesn't mean you don't know what to say. It means you're wise enough not to waste words that could wound. That moment of stillness, a breath, a count, a slow exhale, creates space for your higher self to speak instead of your hurt self. Because words born in anger always echo longer than the moment they're spoken in. Pause before you pour. Breathe before you break. In communication, composure always wins over volume. When emotion becomes the message under pressure, it's not always your words people remember, it's your energy. You could say the right thing in the wrong tone, and it lands like a weapon, or say very little, but with calm conviction, and it becomes healing. Emotion always leaks through language, so the real question isn't what are you saying, it's what energy are you speaking from. Are you reacting from fear, or responding from peace? Are you trying to prove your point, or preserve the relationship? The strongest communicators aren't those who overpower others with words. They're the ones who regulate their emotion before they release their message. When you speak from grounded emotion, your voice carries authority. Not loudness, authority. That quiet, centered strength that says, I'm calm because I'm clear. The science of calm speech. There's real psychology behind this. When your voice slows down, your listener's nervous system mirrors yours. When your tone softens, their defense lowers. You can actually physiologically calm a tense room with how you breathe and speak. That's why great leaders never rush their words. They understand that tone communicates safety long before logic does. It's not just what you communicate, it's how your nervous system delivers it. So here's a simple practice. When you're about to say something important, especially under pressure, drop your shoulders, exhale, and lower your tone slightly. That physical act tells your body, I am safe, I am grounded. And once your body believes that, your words carry peace instead of panic. Respond, don't react. Every stressful conversation offers you two doors: reaction or response. Reaction is instinctive. It's fast, fiery, and usually regrettable. Response is intentional. It's slow, steady, and rooted in awareness. Reaction seeks to be right. Response seeks to bring light. The moment you feel the heat rising, remind yourself, this isn't about being right. It's about being real and staying grounded while I do it. One of the hardest lessons in communication is realizing that you can't control how someone hears you, but you can always control how you deliver your truth. And when your truth is delivered calmly, it doesn't just inform, it transforms. Listening as leadership. Listening is not passive. It's one of the most powerful forms of emotional intelligence. When someone speaks to you in tension, and you truly listen, without interrupting, defending or rehearsing your response, you're giving them something rare, space to feel seen. That's what dissolves pressure. People don't calm down when you tell them to calm down. They calm down when they feel understood. So listen, not to reply, but to understand. Because the moment you make someone feel heard, you've already changed the tone of the conversation. You can't think clearly in a room that's full of noise. Listening is how you quiet that room, internally and externally. Words that anchor, not agitate. When you're under pressure, use language that anchors rather than escalates. Here are a few simple shifts that transform tension into clarity. Instead of "you always," say "I've noticed." Instead of "you don't care," say "I feel unheard when." Instead of "this is your fault," say "let's look at what we can do differently." Small linguistic shifts create emotional space. You're not diluting truth. You're delivering it wisely. Remember, clarity without compassion becomes cold, but compassion without clarity becomes chaos. Calm communication lives in the middle, honest but humble. When words fail, presence speaks sometimes. No words can fix what's broken in the moment. That's when your presence does the talking. A calm tone, a steady breath, a peaceful silence. Those things speak louder than the most perfect sentence ever could. In high pressure, people don't need your speeches. They need your stability. Your groundedness becomes the language of safety. Because long after they forget what you said, they'll remember how they felt around you. Spiritual strength in speech. If you draw strength from faith, remember this. Even Scripture says, "Be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger." That's not weakness. That's divine wisdom. Calm speech doesn't mean you're timid. It means your soul is in control. It's what separates the wise from the weary, the composed from the reactive. When you let peace guide your words, even correction becomes connection. Even truth feels like healing. Your voice becomes a vessel of calm, and every listener who hears it feels that peace echo inside them. Final reflection under pressure. Your words can either build a bridge or burn one. They can either release peace or multiply tension. The choice is always yours. Speak slowly, breathe often, choose clarity over chaos. And when in doubt, pause. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say under pressure is nothing at all. Just your calm presence, just your still strength, just your peace, leading the room without a word. That is the real secret to mastering communication under pressure. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present. And when you can speak from peace, no amount of pressure can steal your clarity. Chapter 7. How to turn pressure into purpose. Pressure doesn't always come to crush you. Sometimes it comes to clarify you, to strip away distractions, sharpen your focus, and reveal what truly matters. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid pressure. They see it as punishment, as something that happens to them. But what if pressure was never your enemy? What if it was the tool that life uses to prepare you for your next level? Because truthfully, there is no growth without weight. There is no progress without resistance. And there is no purpose that doesn't come with pressure attached. The refining fire. Think about how gold becomes pure. It doesn't just shine on its own. It's heated, burned, refined. The fire doesn't destroy it. It reveals its true form. That's exactly what pressure does to you. It exposes the impurities, the doubts, the fears, the illusions, so that the real you can emerge stronger and clearer. When life applies pressure, it's not punishing you, it's promoting you. It's preparing your character for what your calling requires, because pressure reveals what peace hides. When everything's calm, you can pretend you're ready. But when life turns up the heat, only what's real remains. The two kinds of pressure. There are two kinds of pressure in life: destructive pressure and developmental pressure. Destructive pressure is the kind that breaks you because you resist it. It's the stress that grows when you fight reality, deny change, or cling to what's already gone. Developmental pressure, though, builds you. It's uncomfortable, yes, but it expands your capacity. It stretches your patience, deepens your wisdom, and awakens strength you didn't know you had. The difference between the two isn't in what happens to you, it's in how you interpret it. Perspective turns destructive pressure into developmental growth. And the moment you start seeing pressure as a teacher instead of a threat, everything changes. Purpose hides in pain. Here's a truth that few talk about: your greatest purpose often comes from your greatest pressure. Ask anyone who's created something meaningful, and they'll tell you, the breakthrough started in a breakdown. The calling was born out of chaos. The idea came when everything else was falling apart. Because pressure squeezes clarity out of confusion. When the weight gets heavy enough, you stop trying to be everything, and you focus on what actually matters. That's where purpose begins, at the intersection of pain and perspective. So instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" try asking, "What is this preparing me for?" Because what feels like pressure today might just be the foundation for purpose tomorrow. Pressure creates priority. When life tightens, distractions fall away. Suddenly, you realize what's worth your energy, and what never was. You learn that not everything deserves a reaction, not everyone deserves an explanation, and not every opportunity is your assignment. Pressure teaches you to simplify. It reminds you that peace is priceless. It turns your attention from what's urgent to what's eternal. When you stop trying to escape pressure and start learning from it, it becomes your mentor. It teaches focus, it demands discipline, and it rewards perseverance. Because the truth is, you were never meant to live pressure-free. You were meant to become pressure-proof. The turning point. The turning point is when you stop asking pressure to go away and start asking it what it's trying to teach you. Every challenge has a message inside it. Sometimes the message is grow, sometimes it's let go, sometimes it's slow down. But there's always something. The key is listening before reacting. Because once you extract the lesson, the pressure loses its power over you. You can't control the storm, but you can control the story you tell yourself while you're in it. And that story determines whether the pressure breaks you or builds you. Purpose is not found. It's formed. Most people wait for purpose to appear like a sign in the sky. But purpose isn't discovered. It's developed. It's shaped over time, through decisions, discipline, and difficulty. Every time you face pressure with faith instead of fear, you're forming purpose. Every time you choose clarity over chaos, you're strengthening purpose. Every time you keep going when it would be easier to quit, you're living your purpose. Because purpose isn't something you find when life is easy. It's something you forge when life is hard. Faith and focus. Faith is the bridge between pressure and purpose. It's what keeps you standing when nothing makes sense yet. Faith doesn't remove the pressure. It redefines it. It says, this isn't happening to me. It's happening for me. And that shift of perspective turns struggle into strategy. The pressure that once made you doubt now becomes the proof that you're being prepared. The weight that once scared you now becomes the workout for your next level of wisdom. Pressure doesn't mean you're out of alignment. Sometimes it means you're exactly where you need to be, building strength through surrender. The irony of purpose is that it doesn't come from control. It comes from surrender. The more you fight life's pressure, the more it fights back. But when you lean into it, when you trust the process, you start to see patterns forming behind the pain. You realize that every delay was protection, every loss had a lesson, every wait had wisdom in disguise. Surrender isn't giving up, it's saying, I'm done resisting what's meant to refine me. And that's when pressure transforms into purpose. Final reflection: pressure is not the enemy. It's the evidence that something inside you is growing. It's the universe, or God, saying, you're ready for more. So breathe through it, learn from it, let it shape you. Because one day, you'll look back and realize, every sleepless night, every heavy season, every tear you thought was a setback, was actually the workshop where your purpose was being built. The pressure didn't destroy you, it defined you. It turned your chaos into clarity, your fear into focus, and your pain into purpose. And that right there is the real secret to thinking clearly under pressure, to stop running from it and start rising through it. Chapter 8. The balance between control and surrender. There's a thin line between being in control and being consumed by control. One leads to confidence, the other leads to chaos. Every human instinct wants control. We want to know what's coming. We want to manage outcomes. We want to avoid surprises. Control makes us feel safe. But life in its rawest form is unpredictable. No matter how strong your plans are, something always happens that reminds you, you're not the one running the universe. That moment of realization can either frustrate you or free you. Because clarity under pressure doesn't come from controlling everything. It comes from knowing what to control and what to surrender. The illusion of control pressure often exposes our addiction to control. When things get uncertain, our first reaction is to tighten our grip, to force things into order. But the tighter you hold on, the more everything slips through your fingers. Control can disguise itself as responsibility. It can make you believe that worrying is working, that stress equals strategy. But that's a lie that drains your energy and steals your peace. You can't control the storm, but you can control your stance. You can't stop the waves, but you can learn how to surf. That's the balance, learning to take ownership of your response, not the outcome. True peace begins where unnecessary control ends. When surrender feels like weakness, surrender doesn't mean giving up, it means giving in to wisdom. It's a conscious decision to stop fighting what's already happening and start flowing with it instead. But our ego hates surrender. It calls it weakness. It says, if I don't fix this, it will fall apart. Yet, so often the moment we release control is the moment things finally fall into place. Because surrender isn't passive, it's powerful. It's saying, I've done my part, now I trust the process. And in that trust, mental fog lifts. You stop reacting emotionally and start responding intelligently. That's where clear thinking lives, not in the noise of control, but in the quiet of surrender. The art of knowing the difference. Here's a truth most people never master. You can't surrender everything, and you can't control everything. You must discern which is which. Control the controllables, your mindset, your effort, your discipline, your focus. Surrender the rest: timing, other people's choices, outcomes, the past. The power is in discernment, knowing where your influence ends and where faith begins. This balance is what gives you composure under pressure. It's what keeps your thoughts steady when everything else is shaking. And it's what allows you to breathe when the world feels too heavy to carry. Why over-control creates overwhelm. When you try to control too much, your mind enters survival mode. It starts scanning for threats, overthinking every possibility, calculating every risk. That's not wisdom, that's anxiety, disguised as preparation. Pressure amplifies this illusion. The more unpredictable things become, the more your brain craves structure. But sometimes it builds it in the wrong places. You plan for perfection instead of progress. You react to fear instead of listening to faith. The result: exhaustion, mental clutter, confusion. That's why surrender is not just spiritual, it's psychological. It resets your nervous system. It tells your brain, you don't have to carry everything alone. And once your brain relaxes, clarity returns. The strength in letting go. There's a story about a man who tried to catch a butterfly. He chased it through fields, waving his arms, trying to trap it with force. But the butterfly always escaped. Finally, he stopped running and sat quietly. Moments later, the butterfly landed softly on his hand. That's what surrender does. It invites peace instead of chasing it. It teaches you that what's meant for you doesn't require frantic energy. It requires alignment. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop forcing. You replace desperation with direction, panic with patience, and fear with faith. And when you do, the pressure loses its grip. Control your focus. Not the future. Focus is your power. It's what you do have control over when everything else feels uncertain. When your attention is scattered, jumping from worry to worry, your mind becomes noisy and unclear. But when you bring your focus to the present, everything slows down. You can't control the next 10 years. You can't even control the next 10 minutes. But you can control the next breath. And if you can do that consistently, breath by breath, moment by moment, the noise fades and wisdom returns. Pressure is only as loud as your focus is scattered. Faith, the foundation of surrender. Faith is not denial. It's not pretending everything's fine. Faith is saying, even if I can't see how this will work out, I trust that something greater is guiding the outcome. Faith gives you strength when logic runs out. It reminds you that surrender doesn't mean you're losing. It means you're aligning. It's the quiet confidence that says, I've done all I can, now I rest. That kind of faith doesn't remove the pressure, but it transforms it. It changes the energy from chaos to clarity, from panic to peace. Faith says, this isn't falling apart, it's falling into place. When to hold on, when to release. One of the hardest lessons in life is knowing when to hold on and when to let go. Hold on to principles, not plans. Hold on to purpose, not position. Hold on to what builds you, not what breaks you. Let go of timelines. Let go of trying to prove yourself. Let go of fighting battles that don't belong to you. The moment you release what you were never meant to carry, you free your mind to see the truth clearly. And in that clarity, pressure becomes purpose again. The power of surrendered action. Surrender doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing the right thing with the right energy. You still show up. You still give your best, but without the desperate need to control every result. This is surrendered action. Movement with peace instead of panic. It's waking up each day and saying, I'll give everything I have, and I'll trust God with the rest. That posture turns pressure into partnership. You stop carrying life like a burden and start co-creating it with grace. Final reflection. The balance between control and surrender is where peace lives. Too much control leads to burnout. Too much surrender leads to passivity. But together, they create mastery. Life will never be predictable, but you can be prepared, not through tension, but through trust. Control what you can, surrender what you can't. And in that sacred space between effort and faith, you'll find clarity that pressure can't touch. Because the truth is, thinking clearly under pressure isn't about being in charge of everything. It's about being in tune with what truly matters. Chapter 9. The Science of Calm. How to train your mind for pressure. Calm is not an accident. It's not a personality trait. It's a trained response. When you see someone who remains composed while the world burns around them, don't mistake it for luck. That's not genetics. That's training. It's the science of how the mind and body synchronize under stress. And when you learn how to control that system, you no longer react to pressure. You reshape it. Let's break it down. Your brain under pressure. The human brain is ancient, built for survival, not serenity. When pressure hits, your brain doesn't care about logic or goals, it only cares about safety. This is where the amygdala, your brain's alarm system, kicks in. It floods your body with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. Your heartbeat accelerates. Your breathing shortens. Your focus narrows to immediate threats. This reaction once saved our ancestors from predators, but today, it's what makes your hands shake before an interview, or your mind go blank during conflict. The same biology that once helped us run from danger now works against us in modern pressure. To think clearly under pressure, you must learn how to interrupt this primal loop, to tell your brain, I am safe. Let's focus. The breathing switch, your breath, is the bridge between panic and peace. It's the only body function that's both automatic and voluntary, meaning you can use it to override your stress response. When stress strikes, your breathing becomes short and shallow. That signals the brain, we're in danger. But when you breathe deeply, especially through your diaphragm, you flip the signal. You tell your nervous system, we're safe. Try this method. Breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4, exhale for 6. This ratio activates your parasympathetic nervous system, the part of your body responsible for calm and recovery. Within 60 seconds, your heart rate slows, your focus widens, your clarity returns. This is why elite soldiers, surgeons, and athletes train their breath, not for spirituality, but for survival, because clarity, in the heat of pressure, starts with the lungs, the mind-muscle connection. Your mind is not just an abstract field of thoughts, it's a muscle, and like any muscle, it can be conditioned. When you repeatedly expose yourself to mild stress and stay calm, your brain rewires itself. Neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity, the ability of your brain to form new pathways based on repeated experiences. So, if every time you feel tension, you consciously slow your breath, relax your shoulders, and center your thoughts, over time, that becomes your default response. The calm you once forced becomes automatic. That's the science of mental training. Repetition creates resilience. Your inner dialogue determines your reaction. When pressure hits, your inner voice decides your outcome before your body does. If your thoughts spiral into fear, this is too much. I can't handle this. Your brain believes it and amplifies the stress response. But when your inner voice says, I've been here before, I can handle this, your body follows. This is not fake positivity. It's neural programming. The brain doesn't distinguish between imagined and real experiences. What you say internally becomes your reality externally. That's why affirmations work best under pressure when they're realistic and embodied. I've handled worse. I am steady. I breathe, I think. I act. The more you practice those thoughts in calm moments, the easier it is for them to surface during chaos. Train calm before you need it. You cannot build clarity in the storm. You build it before it comes. This is where mental conditioning comes in. Every small challenge you face, traffic jams, long queues waiting in silence, is an opportunity to train calm. Next time you feel impatient, don't fight it. Observe it. Breathe through it. Remind yourself, this is a training ground, not a test. With time, your nervous system learns that discomfort is not danger, and that shift rewires everything. Your focus sharpens, your reactions slow, and your thoughts align under pressure. The role of body awareness. When your mind feels overwhelmed, check in with your body. Tension is a message, a signal that your mind has gone offline and survival mode has taken over. Bring awareness back through small anchors. Unclench your jaw, drop your shoulders, feel your feet on the ground. These physical cues ground your mind back to the present. The moment you reconnect with your body, your brain recalibrates. That's why monks, martial artists, and even executives use body scanning techniques to detect tension before it turns into chaos. Rituals that build clarity. Calm is built on consistency. You can't rely on random moments of peace. You must create them intentionally. Here are 3 rituals that strengthen mental clarity. Morning centering. Start each day with silence before screens. 5 minutes of intentional breathing and gratitude can set your mind's tone for the entire day. The pause technique. Before responding to any stressful situation, pause, 1 breath, 1 heartbeat, 1 thought. Then respond with awareness instead of reaction. Nightly reset. Before bed, reflect on 1 moment you handled well under pressure. Train your brain to remember victories, not anxieties. The subconscious learns from repetition. Feed it resilience, not fear. Faith and the physiology of calm. Science explains the mechanism. Faith completes the meaning. When you trust that there's a higher order beyond your control, your brain relaxes its grip. This isn't superstition, it's neuropsychology. Faith rewires your interpretation of uncertainty from threat to trust. It shifts the inner language from "what if I fail" to "even if I fail, I'm not finished." When logic collapses, faith sustains clarity. That's why the calmest people often have the deepest trust, not because life is easier, but because their belief anchors them when logic runs out. From reaction to response, here's the final shift. Pressure doesn't demand perfection, it demands presence. Every time you catch yourself reacting, you have a window, a half-second of awareness, to choose your next move. That single breath between reaction and response is where clarity lives. Train that space, protect that space, because that's where power begins. Final reflection. Calm is not something you wait for, it's something you practice. The science of calm is the science of control, not over the world but over yourself. It's the mastery of physiology, breath, focus, and faith, woven together into a habit of composure. And when you train that, truly train it, the storms don't shrink, but your strength grows so vast that storms simply pass through you. That is the science of calm. That is the foundation of clarity. Chapter 10. Living unshakable, becoming the calm in every storm. There comes a moment in every journey where you stop searching for calm because you've become it. You no longer chase peace, you carry it. And that's when you realize pressure was never the problem. Your relationship with it was. This final chapter is not about learning something new. It's about remembering everything you've become, because by now you've learned the tools, the breathing, the mindset, the surrender, the focus, the balance between control and faith. But tools alone don't make you unshakable. Integration does. This is the moment where calm stops being a technique and becomes an identity. The anatomy of an unshakable mind. An unshakable person isn't one who never feels pressure. They're one who feels it, but never lets it define their state. They think clearly because they've trained clarity. They breathe deeply because they've practiced stillness. They trust deeply because they've surrendered control. Pressure no longer hijacks their system. It activates their wisdom. They've shifted from reaction to response, from chaos to command. That's what mastery looks like. Not the absence of storms, but the ability to walk through them without losing your center. The calm presence. You've seen them. The ones who walk into tense rooms and instantly shift the energy. They speak softly but with weight. Their silence says more than their words. That's the power of presence. Presence is built through inner stillness. It's what people feel before you even speak. Because calm energy is contagious. It slows down the space around you, invites trust, and creates safety. When you become calm, you don't just transform your mind, you transform your environment. And that's the quiet leadership of an unshakable soul, redefining strength. The world teaches us that strength is intensity, loud, dominant, unbending. But true strength is grace under fire. It's measured in how softly you can breathe in chaos, how patiently you can wait when others panic, how kind you remain when life gets unfair. That's not weakness, that's mastery. Because the greatest battles are not won through force, they're won through stability. And you can't be stable if your peace depends on the world behaving. Real power is inner, unshaken by praise, unbroken by pressure, unmoved by chaos. It's a power that whispers, no matter what happens, I remain. The legacy of calm. When you master calm, you do more than help yourself. You heal others. People mirror the energy you bring. If you walk in anxious, they absorb it. If you walk in grounded, they borrow your peace. That's the silent legacy of clarity. You create safe spaces for others just by existing in peace. Imagine a world where more people learned this art, how different conversations would sound, how fewer mistakes would be made in anger, how fewer hearts would break from words spoken in haste. Becoming unshakable isn't just about surviving, it's about serving. It's about being the calm voice when everyone else is losing theirs. The paradox of peace. Here's the paradox. The more you stop trying to be calm, the calmer you become. Calm doesn't come from trying to silence your thoughts. It comes from learning to listen to them differently, from understanding that pressure is just energy, and energy can be redirected. The goal is not to never feel stress. The goal is to let stress move through you without owning you. When you stop fighting every emotion, when you stop demanding perfection from life, calm finds you in the gaps between expectations. It's the art of allowing things to be what they are while you remain who you are. The spiritual core of unshakable thinking. Every great thinker, every visionary, every grounded soul has one thing in common: they believe in something greater than themselves. Faith in God, in life, in purpose, acts as the ultimate stabilizer. It gives meaning to moments that logic can't explain. It turns waiting into trust, and pain into growth. When you live anchored in faith, your mind no longer breaks under pressure. It bends and returns stronger. Because faith whispers what fear never can. This too is working for your good. And when that truth becomes real to you, not just in theory, but in feeling, nothing external can overthrow your internal peace. Practical habits of the unshakable. Unshakable thinking is maintained through practice. Here are daily anchors that keep your clarity sharp. Morning alignment. Before the noise begins, remind yourself who you are and what you control. Set your inner tone before the world does. Intentional pauses. Throughout the day, stop for 10 seconds and check in with your breath. You're not losing time, you're regaining clarity. Graceful endings. Each night, forgive yourself for what didn't go right. Release the day so tomorrow can begin clean. Faithful gratitude. Every challenge faced is proof of strength gained. Gratitude reframes pressure into progress. Silent reflection. Let your quiet time speak louder than your notifications. Solitude restores perspective. These aren't rituals of escape, they're rituals of power. Because calm isn't built in the absence of responsibility, it's built in the discipline of awareness. Becoming the calm pressure will come again, in your work, your relationships, your dreams. You'll feel the old familiar heartbeat of tension, but this time something will be different. Because now you know what that feeling means. It's not danger, it's your training calling. It's a reminder of everything you've learned. You'll take a slow breath. You'll remember the science, the surrender, the purpose, the trust. You'll step forward, not as the person you were, but as the calm you've become. You are no longer chasing peace. You are the peace. You are no longer reacting to life. You're leading it. And when others lose themselves in the storm, they'll find you, standing steady, speaking clearly, guiding gently. Because you are the calm in every storm. You are the quiet confidence that pressure can't crush. You are living proof that clarity isn't found in perfection, it's found in peace. Final reflection. You've reached the end of this journey, but truly this is just the beginning. From this moment forward, every challenge becomes practice. Every storm becomes training. Every breath becomes a reminder of your strength. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more calm. And now you carry that calm wherever you go. So stand tall, breathe deep, speak gently, think clearly, live unshakable. Because when you master clarity under pressure, you don't just survive life, you lead it.